Welcome back to our Nesting Baskets Crochet-Along. I'm Linda Permann from One Big Happy Yarn Co., and we want to be your yarn shop no matter where you live. If you still need a kit, remember you can choose your choice of color plus a printed pattern at onebighappy.com. Today we're going to start crocheting our baskets. I'll show you how to begin with a magic ring, then we'll work in the round 2 ways, and I'll give you tips for measuring your gauge. Don't worry, we're going to do it as we go. Let's get started. So for this pattern, we'll be working with 2 strands of yarn held together the entire time. That's just going to give us a nice sturdy basket. So let me just show you what to do. I'm going to take my center end and my outside end of my ball of yarn. If you have 2 separate balls of yarn, that's fine too. Just grab both outer ends and put those together. You might want to just take those 2 balls and throw them in a jar or a basket or something so that they can roll around without going all over your living room or wherever you're crocheting. And then just line up your 2 strands. I like to kind of line up a little bit of length here to get it started. And then we're going to start at the very center of the bottom of the basket with a magic ring or an adjustable ring. This is really simple to make. It's not something to overthink, and I'm just going to show you what I do. What I like to do is leave a long end and go ahead and get my yarn in my hand how I like to hold it. So I hook it, flip my hand, and flip it over. And then I just wrap my thumb with the tail end of the yarn, hold that, and pull this yarn through. That's the ring. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to make 6 single crochet in this ring. So I'm just going to go right into this big space right here. And we'll always start with 6 single crochet for each of these baskets, but your pattern has all of the detailed instructions for how many and when. I'm just going to show you techniques. So that's 3. Again, if you need a little refresher, single crochet is just insert your hook, yarn over, pull it up, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on your hook. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochet. I need 2 more. So yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, pull through both loops, and then I need 1 more single crochet here. And the reason why this is called a magic or adjustable ring is that now I can just pull that strand tight and have a completely closed center. And for these first rounds, we're actually going to work in joined rounds. So we're not just going to keep going. We're going to insert our hook in the first stitch of the round. It might be a little tricky because we've got the double strand of yarn. And we're going to pull it through and make that join. And that is our 1 round. Now I'm going to chain 1 and start the next round. And in this round, we're going to do 2 single crochet in every stitch below. So I'm going to go ahead and make my first 2 in this stitch. Oops, and sometimes that's going to happen. Your yarn, you're going to grab only 1 strand, just pull it back and start again. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull through, and then make my second single crochet in that same stitch. Now, right before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and mark this very first stitch that I just made. I'm going right under the V of the stitch and just go ahead and lock that in. I'm going to show you in a few rounds why, but it's just really easy to accidentally add stitches at the beginning of the round if you don't pay attention. So I'm marking it because I know where it is right now. Now I'm going to continue just making 2 single crochet in each stitch around to make this next round. So what we're doing in this round is we're increasing every stitch because we're making the flat bottom of the basket. And so we're starting with a flat circle. There's a formula for a circle that gives you a nice flat piece. It's all written into your pattern though, so if you need any extra details, be sure to take a look at that. So I'm going to count where I'm at. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 1 more stitch to work. We'll do, oops, try not to split your doubled strands. 1 and 2. And that's the 12 stitches of the round. So here I am at the end of my round, and it seems like a far jump to get all the way back to where I marked it. And that's exactly why I marked it. You would want to go here and add an extra stitch accidentally if you don't mark it to know that that's actually what your next stitch is. I want to show you what that looks like when you do that again and again, round after round, just so you understand what would happen. It's not the end of the world, and it starts really subtly, but then your basket starts to not be able to lie flat. So on this sample, I did everything the same way. I'm just going to show you what to do, except that I accidentally added a stitch or two at the beginning of each round. You start to get this ruffle. And you sort of go, why can't I make this flat? And if you just did it once or twice, it wouldn't be the end of the world, and counting tends to help you not do it, but you end up adding stitches and it just throws things off. So I find the stitch marker is the easiest way to prevent that, because I just mark the stitch while I know where it is, and then when I get back to it, it's like, oh yeah, that's right, that's the stitch I'm gonna join in. So let's go ahead and join the second round. I'm gonna go ahead and take out the marker, and then you just go right under that V, pull your yarn through, and then pull it through the loop on your hook. We'll go ahead and chain one right away and do our first single crochet so that we know we're going right into that same stitch. And go ahead and mark that. So I always do that, even if I'm going to put my work down, I go ahead and work that first stitch of the round and mark it before I ever pause. So now for round 3, we're going to work 1 single crochet in the first, 2 in the next, 1 in the first, 2 in the next. So we're starting to space out our increases. Again, you can just follow the pattern along to do that, and we're going to do that all the way around. As you're working these first rounds, you're kind of getting a sense of how to hold the yarn, and it is a little bit tricky sometimes to hold these 2 strands together, so just take your time, and if you end up splitting it or accidentally only grabbing 1 strand, just don't worry, pull it back out, try it again, and you will get the hang of it as you keep going. You do want to be sure to keep your tension pretty tight. You want to tug pretty tight, because that's what's going to give you a sturdy basket where the sides are going to stay standing even when nothing's in it. And it's super easy to start loosening up your gauge. So just make a mental note that you want to hold it tight as you go, because that's going to give you what you want in your finished basket. So I'm almost through this round. I am going to go ahead and count my stitches to make sure I'm on track. Oops. Okay, so here's my first one. There's the V. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Perfect, that's exactly how many I should have. Because we started with 6 and because we're working a flat circle, we're actually going to add the same number of stitches to each round. So if you want to look at this and see that this is round 1, this is round 2, this is round 3, I know 3 times 6 is 18, so I'm right on track. But again, your pattern has all that information if you'd rather just not think too much about it. So I'm going to go ahead and join. Again, it looks like Pac-Man here, but that's the right stitch to work into. So we're going to go through, pull it all the way through, chain 1, and work our first single crochet. So for this round, we're actually going to work a single crochet, another single crochet in the next stitch, and then 2 single crochet. So as the rounds numbers increase, we're adding another stitch between increases. So we're going to do that for about the next 3 rounds, but then it's going to shift where the increases go. So I'm going to crochet a bit till we get there, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've just finished round 7, and I want to show you what's happening here. So we have our 7 rounds. Again, to count the rounds, you can just start in the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you can see this is looking a little bit more like a hexagon than a circle. Every part that looks like a point is where we've made our increases, and up till now we've made them all at the same place around the circle. So as you start round 8, you'll notice that the way the increases are worked is slightly different. That's intentional, because in this round we're going to place them sort of in the middle of where they were before, and that's going to help round our basket back into a circle. So from here on out, we're going to alternate rounds. Basically, on the rounds where you have an even number of stitches between increases, I've split it up so that you can space the increases slightly differently. Again, all the information is in your pattern, but I wanted to explain why it's written that way, and it's really just to keep this circular. So let's go ahead and work round 8 together so you understand that. We're going to chain 1, single crochet in the first 3 stitches. So I've already done 1, so 2 and 3. And then we're going to go ahead and do our increase here. So 2 single crochet here. And you can see from the previous round, we would have done it over here. Now I'm going to work 6 single crochets. 1, 2, and that is just going right over our previous increase and smoothing it out. 4, 5, 6. And from here we're going to do an increase. So an increase is 2 stitches in the same one, so 2 single crochet. And then we'll go ahead and work 6 single crochet again. So again, I'm working right over the previous round's increase, and that's going to help smooth this out. 4, 5, 6. And you can already see this side has not had round 8 worked, and it's very hexagonal, and this is rounding it out. So that's why as you continue to build the basket bottom, you're alternating rounds of where you're placing the increases. So just follow along with your pattern, take it row by row, don't overthink it, and you'll end up with a really nice round base. I'm going to go ahead and work all the way through round 9, and then I'm going to show you how to measure your gauge. So I have here my piece crocheted through round 9, and round 9 is where we're going to measure it for gauge. So the pattern tells us that 9 rounds worked in single crochet, again with 2 strands held together, measures 5 1/8 inches across. So I'm going to take my ruler, you could use a measuring tape too if you like, and I'm just going to measure from the edge to the edge and making sure that I'm kind of intersecting the center of the circle so that I'm not off by much. So I can see my 0 mark here, measuring all the way across. I'm right at 5 1/8 inches. So you can measure right to the edge of your stitch. So that means I'm on track and I'm using the right hook size to create the fabric that I want for these baskets. You want a fabric that's pretty dense, maybe just a little bit uncomfortably tight to crochet because it's just going to give that nice weight to your basket. But if your gauge doesn't match up, here's what to do. If your piece measures too big, you want to move to a smaller hook size and try again. So you would want to start all over from the beginning and measure your gauge. I would suggest you maybe even just start a different basket. That way if you're on track, you can just go for it and not sort of have the pain of ripping out your other one just yet until you know what hook size to use. If your piece measures too small across, you're going to want to go up a hook size. But, you know, that's sort of personal preference too, because if you don't mind having a slightly smaller, slightly tighter basket and you like the fabric you're creating, then you'd be fine if you were off by just a little bit. If your piece is too big, you do risk running out of yarn. I used almost every last bit, especially for the largest basket. So it's important to check your gauge, not only to decide, do I like the fabric that I'm making? Do I want a basket made out of that fabric? And also, will I have enough yarn in my kit to complete the project as it's designed? So once you've checked your gauge like that, then you're just going to keep crocheting around following the pattern for each round of instructions. And then once you reach a certain point, depending on which size basket you're making, you're going to start working into a spiral. So I'm going to go ahead and pretend that I'm going to change it to a spiral on round 9, just because the technique is the same no matter what round you're on. And you'll see for the different sizes of basket, it'll tell you which round to stop on to create those different sizes. So as you begin to work in a spiral, you're not going to do anything different at the beginning of the round. You're just going to go ahead and start your single crochet. It's when we get to the end of the round that you'll start working in a spiral. So I'm going to crochet around and I'll meet you right back at the end of the round before I finish it to show you how that's different. So a few things to keep in mind as you start crocheting in a spiral. Once you get to this point of the pattern, that's when you're going to work your rounds even. That means there aren't going to be any more increases in your work as you move around the piece. So this is like a great little time where it gets to autopilot and you can just enjoy doing the work without having to pay as much attention to the pattern. The number of rounds that you're going to work will differ depending on which size basket you're making. So just be sure that you consult your pattern every now and again, because it's going to give you all of those details. So I'm coming to my last stitch here. I still want to be careful not to work that join. So I went ahead and added my marker back there, but these are the joins. And here we're going to start our spiral rounds. And the reason why we're going to work in a spiral here is because I don't mind this showing on the bottom, but I like the cleaner look of a spiral for the sides of the basket. So I'm going to take out my marker And instead of joining, I'm actually just going to make my first stitch of the next round right in it. So it's kind of a big jump here. There is a little bit of a jog. We'll talk about what to do there when we change colors. But I'm going to go ahead and mark it just so I know where the beginning of the round is. And then I'm going to keep crocheting around. Again, just one single crochet in every stitch. So another thing that's going to happen to you probably 1 or 2 rounds in of working even is that you'll start to see your work cup like this. And in crochet, the side that's facing you as you do your first round is the right side. But as the work starts to cup, it would be really easy to think that this was the outside. So what I like to do is the minute this starts to happen is I pop it inside so that I know that I have the right side facing me, because this is going to be the outside of the basket. I just want to show you what that looks like. So here is the outside of the basket. If we were to flip this inside out, it's not quite as smooth. If you like the look of it, it doesn't really matter, but I just want you to know what the right side is supposed to be. So this is the wrong side. Here's how that looks compared to the right side. You can really see the coils of the rounds that we're building here. So once it starts to cup, just go ahead and flip it. Another easy way to know what the right side is that your tails are probably going to be on the back of your work, so that'll be the inside of your basket. And from here, you're just going to keep working around in a spiral for as many rounds as the pattern tells you. So I'm going to do a little bit more, then I'm going to show you how to fasten off this color. So I'm almost to the end of my last spiral round in this color, and I'm out of yarn. So this is going to happen to you on the bigger baskets because you do need 2 balls of yarn to complete it. I just wanted to show you how to change strands to your new ball. So what I do is I just put the yarn in my hand the way I would hold it, the new yarn. So I loop it around, flip my hand, and hold it. And then on the working yarn, I make my last stitch. So yarn over and pull it through, but instead of pulling the old yarn through, I grab my new yarn, leaving a long tail, and pull it through. And then I go ahead and I work my next stitch over all those tails with, again, the new yarn. And since we're using 2 strands of yarn, there's a lot of bulk there. I don't actually crochet all the way over it like I would if it was just 1 strand. I just make the first stitch over those tails to secure them, and then I'm going to weave those in opposite directions later. But now I'm working completely from my new yarn, and I can keep going around. So the reason why I like to change yarns within the same stitch is just because it's a little more integrated versus starting a whole new stitch with the new yarn. It just helps it seamlessly blend to the next one. So I'm almost to the end of this round, and I just want to show you what that looks like. Obviously, this is a smaller sample than your smallest basket, but you will get all the same effects. This is, again, a spiral round. I have marked the first stitch so I know when I pass it. So actually I'm, done here. I don't need to work another stitch because technically that's the first stitch of the round, although if you want to, it might help smooth it a bit, and it's not a big deal. It's not going to change much. So I am going to work one more. So now to fasten off this color before we add the next color, here's what you do. Typically you would just pull the yarn through, cut it, and fasten off, but I have a slightly different way that I like to do it because it's a little more seamless when we join the next color. So I'm going to grab my yarn needle, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this loop all the way through and thread both tails through my yarn needle. So I just fold it over, pinch it taut, and slide it through. A little bit full here. There we go. And now, this is hanging out here. What I'm going to do is basically a duplicate stitch over the V of this stitch. It's just going to help it lie flat and more smooth. So I'm going to insert my needle from the top of the V, going under both strands and out through the bottom. And then pull it taut, and then I'm going to go ahead and go back through this V stitch. And then I like to insert my needle into the back of the work there, so like that. And you can see that just creates a smoother join from the outside That way there's less of a stair-step effect as if I just fastened it off there and left the end. So I think that's the smoothest way to do it. While your needle is threaded, you can just go ahead and weave in your ends. I'm going to show you more detail about weaving in ends in the next episode, but if you want to weave it in now, you totally can. And from there, you're finished with the bottom of the basket. You can go ahead and work on all 3 baskets and get the bottoms going so that you'll be ready for the next steps. And that's all there is to it. But if you had any questions about anything I went over, be sure to comment down below and I'll help you out. Next time, I'll show you how to add the second color seamlessly, we'll crochet the handles, and we'll add the super cute tassels. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a stitch, and click the bell to get notified every time we post a new video. Happy crocheting!